let me ask you something, just to make sure we're all on the same page. Have you ever woken up one sunny afternoon, ready to enjoy your retirement with an ice-cold drink by your peaceful backyard pool, only to be ambushed by a human mosquito wearing a visor and wielding a clipboard like it's a weapon of mass destruction? Because that's exactly what happened to me. Her name is Kerren, HOA President Kerren, self-appointed ruler of our cul-de-sac kingdom. If Napoleon had a Karen haircut and a passion for passive-aggressively ruining lives, he'd look like her. Now, for years, I hosted modest summer get-togethers by the pool. Just a few friends, a few tunes, and maybe a flamingo floatie or two. Nothing outrageous. But apparently, according to Kerren, the sight of seniors playing Marco Polo is offensive to the aesthetic standards of the neighborhood. She actually wrote that in an official HOA email with bullet points and bold font and an emoji because, of course, the final straw came on Memorial Day weekend. I was prepping the poolside grill, flipping burgers and laughing with my grandkids when Kerren stormed through my hedges like a budget Godzilla in orthopedic sandals. She flailed her clipboard, declared the gathering an unauthorized aquatic disturbance, and handed me a violation notice right there between the coleslaw and the corn on the cob. That's when I knew this wasn't just about pool parties. This was war. I tried reasoning with her. I tried compromise. But Kerren operates on a diet of control, dried kale, and unseasoned rage. So when she had the HOA pass a new rule banning all pool parties, citing environmental concerns and noise pollution, I realized diplomacy was dead and petty vengeance was about to rise from its chlorinated grave. But I wasn't going to yell or scream. Oh no, that's not my style. Instead, I plotted, I schemed, I built a plan so beautiful, so diabolical, even the devil would have high-fived me. I decided if Kerren didn't want my pool to be private, I'd make it public. That's right. If my parties were too much for her delicate suburban sensibilities, I'd turn my backyard into the neighborhood's unofficial splash zone. No HOA rule could stop public recreational usage. But how does one go about turning a backyard into a water park without technically breaking any rules? Oh, buckle up, my friend. You're about to find out how a retiree with nothing but time, sarcasm, and an Amazon Prime account can outwit, outplay, and outsplash the most fearsome HOA tyrant this side of the picket fence. Because this story isn't just about a pool. It's about justice. It's about freedom. And most importantly, it's about the sweet, sweet sound of revenge, echoing off inflatable whales and floating lounge chairs. Kerren wanted a war. She forgot I was a veteran of HOA nonsense, and I don't lose backyard battles. Now that the war was officially declared, and by war I mean Kerren scribbling "no pools parties" in capital letters on my violation notice with the kind of fury usually reserved for parking tickets and people who put their trash out a day early, I set my grand plan into motion. But before I go further, let's be clear about something. I wasn't just getting revenge. I was setting a gold standard for neighborhood resistance. This wasn't just tit for tat. This was tit for Kerren. And I was about to turn her smug HOA rulebook into soggy poolside confetti. First order of business, reinterpretation. According to the HOA's bylaws, oh yes, I read the entire 89-page PDF, including the footnotes, because I am nothing if not a thorough thorn in their side. The rule against private social gatherings involving aquatic facilities didn't apply to public community recreation. Now, nowhere in the document did it define what public meant. So I made a few phone calls, called up my cousin Carol, who runs a non-profit senior fitness club called Groove and Move. I offered her free access to the pool for water aerobics, provided they wear matching neon swim caps and arrive in groups of no less than 10. Carol loved the idea. So did the 53 retirees who showed up the next morning in synchronized formation, like the world's slowest, sassiest Navy fleet. I also invited the local dog rescue. Yep. Turns out canine swim therapy is very trendy. Soon my pool became the hotspot for limping Labradors and underweight poodles to do their hydro-jogging, all while Kerren stood across the street twitching like a sprinkler on its last setting. I was careful though. No actual parties, no booze, no music, just community enrichment. And let me tell you, there's no HOA clause against a bunch of golden retrievers doing doggy paddle while Carol's water Zumba squad waves their foam noodles to ABBA's greatest hits. Kerren was livid. She called emergency HOA meetings, plural. She printed flyers claiming I was weaponizing elderly fitness and harboring aggressive ducks. Okay, I may have let the neighbors' ducks use the kiddie pool, but they wore bow ties, so that's just adorable, not aggressive. Meanwhile, I doubled down. I launched a Splash for Seniors initiative, offering free swimming lessons to anyone over 65. Word spread fast. Soon, I had more floating grandpas in my backyard than a cruise ship buffet. I even got a mention in the local paper under the headline, "Man uses HOA loophole to create backyard paradise." There was a photo of me, sunglasses on, drink in hand, surrounded by grinning old folks, and one very happy dachshund in a life vest. I framed that article, put it on my front porch. Kerren tried to hit me with noise complaints, zoning violations, and one very weak accusation that I was operating a covert aquatic theme park. But I had receipts, literal receipts from donations to the senior center and dog shelter. You could practically hear her molars grinding every time someone showed up with a beach towel and a prescription for arthritis. And then came the mural. I hired a local artist, technically a teenager with spray paint and a dream, to paint a beautiful, vivid ocean-themed mural on my backyard wall. Whales, dolphins, smiling fish. It was like SeaWorld met Bob Ross. Kerren complained that it was not in keeping with the neutral aesthetic of the community. I responded by printing 20 t-shirts with that exact quote and handing them out to Splash Zone members. By now, my pool had become a cultural landmark. People would stop by just to see if the rumors were true. Was there really a synchronized swimming team made up entirely of octogenarians? Did a parrot named Bingo really shout, "HOA sucks," every time Kerren walked by? Yes, and yes. But don't worry, I wasn't reckless. I checked every rule twice, kept records, and made sure all the paperwork was perfect. Because if Kerren wanted a legal battle, she was going to have to fight me in the deepest end of the bureaucracy pool. And let's be honest, no one drowns in red tape quite like an HOA president who's used to getting her way. My backyard was now a monument to everything Kerren hated: joy, community, inflatable flamingos. And every time she looked out her window, she was reminded that her rule had limits, that just because you hold a clipboard doesn't mean you hold the power. And I wasn't done yet. Oh no, I still had my pièce de résistance to unveil, a grand finale so wet, so wild, it would soak the last shred of control Kerren thought she had. But that's a tale for the next splash. By now, I had created what could only be described as the wettest rebellion in HOA history. My backyard had transformed into the Bermuda Triangle of the neighborhood. Once you entered, you either came out rejuvenated with a tan and a towel, or you didn't leave until someone handed you a popsicle and a pool noodle. But Kerren, Kerren was circling like a shark that just spotted a floating roast beef sandwich. And trust me, nothing fuels the HOA bloodlust like a bunch of grinning seniors playing beach volleyball while a rescue terrier in water wings chases bubbles. So what does a woman like Kerren do when faced with joy she can't control? She escalates. First, she filed a formal complaint with the HOA board claiming I was commercializing residential property because I had the audacity to serve lemonade. Lemonade made from my own lemons, from my own tree, in my own yard. Honestly, if that's a crime, lock me up and throw me in the shallow end. But this wasn't just about citrus. This was war. Her next move was sneakier. She tried to get a new rule passed, one that banned all gatherings exceeding 5 persons involving aquatic equipment. Yes, she literally tried to outlaw pool floaties. You ever see a bunch of grannies storm a board meeting holding laminated pool party flyers? Because I did, and let me tell you, it was majestic. They marched in like the ARP Avengers and shut that nonsense down before the ink was dry. Carol even brought charts. It was glorious. But Kerren wasn't done. No, she brought in reinforcements. She invited an independent HOA consultant, intrigued, her cousin Daryl with a clipboard and superiority complex to evaluate the structural safety of my pool area. Daryl, wearing steel-toe boots and an attitude, walked around like he was on a crime scene. I offered him a margarita. He declined. His law. He took notes, snapped pictures, and made vague statements like, this tile looks slippery. Meanwhile, behind him, a golden retriever named Biscuit was doing the backstroke while two 80-year-olds judged his form like Olympic commentators. Daryl didn't crack a smile. Probably hasn't smiled since 1997. I kept everything polite, because here's the thing about a real conspiracy. You don't lash out, you don't yell, and you definitely don't break the rules. You bend them until they look like pretzels. So I upped my game, quietly, legally, diabolically. First, I registered my backyard as a certified community resource space through a very obscure local ordinance meant to promote outdoor therapeutic engagement for seniors and rescue animals. It required a little paperwork, a quick visit from a bored city official named Mike, who was mostly just excited for the free cookies, and boom, my pool was now officially a public wellness facility. Kerren couldn't touch it. Not legally, not unless she wanted to come after arthritis rehab and emotional support ducks. But then came her coup de grace. She tried to drain my pool, not physically, though I wouldn't have put it past her, but administratively. She convinced the board to vote on a temporary suspension of aquatic gatherings pending neighborhood impact review. The kind of move that sounds boring but hits like a cannonball. She scheduled a meeting to vote on it, gave me 48 hours notice. That was her mistake, because 48 hours is just enough time to plan a full-blown aquatic-themed protest/sit-in/flash mob. The morning of the meeting, I filled the pool with more seniors than a bingo night in Boca Raton. They showed up in custom t-shirts that read, "Splash happens" and "Don't tread on my floatie." I even hired a mariachi band. Don't ask why. It felt right. Then I installed a bubble machine. Pure chaos. Beautiful chaos. When Kerren and her clipboard cronies arrived, they were greeted by synchronized swimmers over 70, a ukulele cover of Don't Stop Believin', and 3 toddlers dressed as flamingos. I didn't even know those toddlers. They just showed up. That's how legendary my pool had become. The HOA board tried to speak over the noise, but it was like trying to lecture a water park. Carol brought a megaphone. Biscuit, the dog, barked every time someone said suspension. And in the middle of it all, Kerren's face looked like she was chewing lemons, possibly the ones I grew. I gave a speech. Oh, you bet I gave a speech. I stood on a deck chair, wrapped in a towel like a toga, and declared, "We, the wet people, in order to form a more perfect splash zone, do hereby reject tyranny in all its HOA-shaped forms." The crowd erupted. Someone popped a confetti cannon. I still don't know who brought that. Probably Carol. The vote didn't even happen. The board postponed it for further discussion, which is HOA for "We're too scared to touch this." And Kerren, she stormed off, her sensible heels squelching with each step. But I knew this wasn't the end. Not yet. Kerren had one last trick up her polyester sleeve, and I had one last splash to make. The final wave was coming, and baby, it was going to be tidal. I wish I could say Kerren gave up after the aquatic flash mob uprising, that she tiptoed away in her kitten heels, quietly muttering apologies and knitting coasters for the pool-goers she once swore vengeance upon. But no, Kerren was not the type to go gentle into that chlorinated night. She doubled down, probably scribbling her new strategy on a doily with the fury of a Shakespearean villainess, her final act of HOA tyranny. She filed a formal grievance with the County Environmental Review Board, claiming my pool, now a wellness zone for seniors and therapy pets, was causing auditory and ecological disruption to the community. Ecological disruption, because birds chirped louder near my house. You couldn't make this stuff up. Her paperwork was impressive, I'll give her that. Charts, a decibel meter app, a printed photo of Biscuit the golden retriever mid-cannonball, which she claimed was evidence of unsafe aquatic activities. The woman was nothing if not thorough. The board scheduled a site visit. I had 1 week. 1 week to ensure that my pool was more than just a source of fun. It had to become untouchable. mythic, revered, and legal to the point of bureaucratic invisibility. So I went full throttle. First, I partnered with the local non-profit for elderly aquatic therapy. Their president, a woman named Eunice with the sharp wit of a sitcom grandma, was thrilled. She brought banners, laminated pamphlets, a 6-page mission statement. By the time the county inspector arrived, my backyard looked like a medical facility disguised as a splash park. There were sign-in sheets, volunteers, printed schedules with time slots for low-impact noodle resistance training and aquatic storytelling hour. Carol even wore a whistle. Meanwhile, I installed solar-powered water filters, biodegradable pool toys, and a small zen corner with koi fish in a bamboo fountain, because nothing screams eco-friendly like ornamental fish and recycled wood. The inspector showed up with a clipboard and a face like he'd rather be anywhere else. Within 10 minutes, he was offered iced tea, handed a complimentary foot soak kit, and witnessed a 78-year-old man named Marvin perform an interpretive dance about arthritis relief. The man left smiling. Kerren was livid. She tried to argue the koi fish were invasive. The inspector replied, "Ma'am, they're in a ceramic bowl. Game, set, splash." But even that didn't satisfy me. Number I wanted closure, the kind that came with confetti and petty glory. So I hosted a community event, the first annual Splash Freedom Festival, sponsored by Old Folks Who Float and Grannies Against Tyranny. We had booths, we had live music. Someone brought a dunk tank and stuck a cardboard cutout of Kerren on it. I didn't condone it publicly, but I may have thrown the first pitch. The neighborhood came alive. People who hadn't spoken in years were bonding over water balloon contests. Biscuit wore a captain's hat. Marvin DJ'd using only an iPad and a dream. And then, mid-party, something incredible happened. The actual local news showed up. Turns out Carol had accidentally emailed a tip to the community segment reporter about a retiree-led aquatic revolution in a tyrannical HOA district. Within hours, there were cameras, interviews, a segment title on the 6 p.m. news, "Seniors Make a Splash Against HOA Crackdown." Kerren's reign was officially over. She resigned 2 days later. The HOA board replaced her with a sweet man named Jerry who liked barbecues, Hawaiian shirts, and not being screamed at over garden gnomes. Peace was restored. And my pool, oh, it flourished. Every Tuesday is now duck float day. Fridays are seniors, only synchronized splash sessions. The koi have names. We added fairy lights. And best of all, no one ever dared ban a party again. So, what's the moral of the story? Simple. Never come between a neighborhood and its right to cannonball, especially when the ringleader is a petty genius with access to a bubble machine, a laminator, and an entire army of spry, floatie-wielding retirees. Kerren learned that the hard way. Me? I just sit by the pool with a cold drink, my flamingo-shaped float, and the sweet, sweet sound of freedom echoing off the ripples. Long live the splash zone.